A lot of women and men, they finish, raising their kids, and then the kids go off to college, and then what? And my thing with this series was really to show people, this extraordinary story could also be your story. Because if she could do it at that time as a woman, so can you.
Hello there, Connie Nielsen.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Especially, I was up all night watching your show.
You were? Oh my God, you were a champ.
I had to force myself to go to sleep. It's my own fault. I've had the screeners for a few days, so I shouldn't have. But I watched the first 4.
Okay.
So I'm gonna watch the last 2. Even if this interview goes terrible, I'm still watching the last 2 because I was so hooked. I just needed to get a few hours of sleep.
I am actually so excited that you got to watch 4 episodes already. So let's hear, what was your experience about it?
It starts off so sad.
I know.
It's so sad.
But it's the truth.
Skinny.
Yes. Oh my God. No idea. I had to starve off, the Wonder Woman muscles. And the Justice League, all of those muscles, I had to starve to remove them. It was so awful. And, I just lived, and it was 2 days a week while I was shooting, where I was actually on water fast 2 whole days in a row per week for the first 2 months of actually shooting, like Karen home from Africa, sick, all of this stuff. But then, having reduced myself to looking horrendous, not to mention that fantastic wig I was wearing and the blue-gray makeup in my face and my brown lenses, I then had to put weight back on and start working out so that I could look like the 3 idealized women in The Dreamers, so that I would look the way she wrote them. And so that meant like getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go and work out, but also it meant finally eating again. But it was such a roller coaster physically and mentally to go from like just living off of water to the opposite in the same shoot.
I mean, I'm just thinking, like, for myself, eating right and exercising regularly is like the most difficult thing in the world.
It is. It's hard. It's a lot of discipline, man.
It's not just part of the gig. Like it's really like,
for me, it's really a tool for building a character, right? But in my personal life, it's also just like, it's, you need to keep healthy and strong, right? And so, yeah, that's how I do it.
I know we're Screen Rant, and I'm sure you've resigned yourself to being asked about Wonder Woman stuff until you die.
That's
but
fine.
Are you looking forward to the opportunity to ever put on that kind of mask again, or are you just like, nah, I'll be skinny now?
Honestly, I love that character so much. And I do love working out. I do love every type of prep for my character. The whole process of preparing myself for the character is just like something that I just love, reading oodles and oodles of books or going on a cleanse in order to, look better or sabotaging myself for 6 months to look awful. Right. And it's just, I love my job. I love the process. And if someone asks me to, learn kickboxing or something for my next character, I'm right in there. I love it.
Karen in this story, she's in her 40s, which would be considered in that period, old. They're ready for her to just knit sweaters until she dies. Well, she's had her adventures in Africa.
Sit over in the corner, stop talking, and just resign yourself. You you're breathing. That's enough.
Like, tell me a little bit about getting into her state of mind as the series begins, and the kind of mental and intellectual conflict, and expressing that through TV.
I went to the actual museum, and I was hanging out with the museum director, and I was actually there to do press for another series that I'd done. And I get all this proprietary information that no one knows. For example, that she became a writer at the age of 47. And then I was told, like, actually her lover, the love of her life, Robert Redford, no kidding, but, had actually left her before, then dying, and leaving it for Karen to, dispose of his, property and himself. And I just realized, nobody knows that story. Everybody's seen Out of Africa. If they have seen anything about Karen, they've seen Out of Africa. And now here we have all these new letters that have been discovered that really show that, no, this woman was actually at the edge of suicide. In fact, she tried to die. She would rather die than go back to living inside of a conformist little box that she would be, forced into. She was about freedom, and freedom was everything to her. And all of a sudden, there she is, about to become a prisoner of her own family and inside of her life, and a beggar. And I wanted to show this extraordinary journey and this extraordinary woman who said, no, I'm gonna find something, and who then ends up finding this talent in herself and then puts everything in on it. And I thought, not only is this interesting, but so many people during COVID realized, I don't know if what I'm doing is what I want to be doing. And a lot of women and men, they finish, raising their kids, and then the kids go off to college, and then what? And my thing with this series was really to show people, this extraordinary story could also be your story. Because if she could do it at that time as a woman, so can you.
There's this interesting kind of like tragic romanticization,
I would say,
of her, of the time in Africa, that like it's made more tragic and more romantic by the show, stuff like Out of Africa and just all of that, because
there was a colonialist fantasy in a way, right? Mm-hmm. Like it was like Cairo in I don't know, the English Patient and so on. Like this mysterious Oriental or African, foreign thing, was romanticized as part of our fantasy about these places, right?
Do you think that she did that to satisfy readers, or do you think that she was resentful of kind of washing out in a way?
No, I think that she had the most extraordinary experience, and she realized that through language, she would be able to transfer that experience to other people. And that's what she does. But in doing so, she's also telling the story the way she wants it known, rather than the story that it really was. Obviously, Out of Africa is not the same as her book, Out of Africa. The African Farm is different than the film. And the film is based on the best available research. But since then, more research has come out, and letters have been found that basically revealed that this was the true story. And I think that this story is incredibly important. But also, how many films or series have you seen about female artists where you actually see them being artists, actually understand what is that process by which they take things that are floating in the ether in their lives or outside of their lives, and they're bringing it in, and through their prism out comes this piece of art. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to show what is it that an actual author does.
That's so perfect. So well said. And so important, because it's not like the end game is for her is literary success. It's not getting a guy. It's like she had the guy. He was okay.
It was okay. And do you know what it was? It was so painful for her. She wasn't expecting that again. And you know, at the time, to a large degree, if you had a guy, it meant giving up your freedom. It meant giving up your goods as well. It meant, relinquishing control over your own life.
This is a little bit random, but and maybe I'm romanticizing. Okay. But if I'm right, your father was a bus driver, right?
Yes.
My father was a bus driver in New York City.
Oh, that must have been really hard.
Yeah, he hated it. He was a blue collar guy. He worked really hard. And his father was a bus driver and a trolley operator. But like in my mind, especially now that he's gone, R.I.P. He was a good guy, but I think of him as like the blood in the veins of the city, keeping things going. But whenever I would talk to him about his work, he'd be like, "Oh man, get a better job than this one, son."
Yeah.
If I romanticize, the life that he led, is that a disservice, or is that me kind of just coping with him having to live a hard life?
No, I think that you are not romanticizing it. I think that to a large degree, you are also right. He may not have loved it, and it may have been a super, super hard job. But, without them, no one would be getting anywhere. And so I, for one, come from a country that celebrates any kind of labor and laborers. Wow, the unions are pretty strong in my country, and it is forbidden to do union busting moves. You would not survive that financially in my country for sure. And I am rock on people, who are doing the jobs that need to be done every day. They need to be done. We need to have way more respect for the actual act of doing a job. Instead, in our culture and in this day and age right now, unfortunately, at this time, we are only revering money, and therefore we are also really looking down on 75% of all people. If that isn't crazy, I don't know what is. So I think that what you're doing is you are not elevating, but paying due respect to the person who, number one, raised you and took care of you. And in doing so, worked darn hard. I take my hat off to people like that who went to work every frigging day in order to put food on the table for you and me, when we were kids. So, yeah, no, I don't think you're romanticizing. I think that you're paying him the respect he is due.
That's good. I like to champion him. Thank you. Actually, that kind of brings it back to the show and Karen kind of being doomed to be a wealthy aristocrat, getting an allowance from her family. And just like in the first episode, it's like those stakes are so high. Like she's doomed like to be an extra in Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
And that's like the worst thing that she could possibly imagine.
It's because it wasn't really not just the money. It's the money was that she was offered in comparison to what she, what everyone else had was so little. I mean, in today's money, even if you translated it through the time, we calculated it, and it was something like $300 a month. So that would be like getting $300 a month, because what do you need? You're living in this house. What else do you need? Well, I'd like to live. And that was not on the table. And so what she was trying to do was really, I have to be a person. I have to be able to express something.
And she's so dogged in her pursuit of that recognition in a way that is like, is so exciting to watch on screen. Where when I started watching it, I'm like, okay, how are they going to make this, exciting and fast paced? And I was just like, as soon as one episode was over, I was like, all right, next one, let's go next episode. I gotta know, like, I'm gonna watch the last two as soon as I'm done talking to you.
She was like that. Like she was this fierce woman, so fierce. And she had to break through like these boxes that she was being locked inside, and it was a kind of fight of life and death for her, and she says so. But it is life and death for me.
And my last question, can you just talk a little bit about how important language is in this project, and how much fun is it to speak your native language on TV?
Oh my God, you've no idea, because you can't actually tell the difference. But, she spoke in such a weird way, even for days. She had like this odd, archaic sound. And because she had lived in Africa for many years and she wrote in English, she never wrote in Danish. She was actually translated into Danish afterwards. So this is a person who always wrote in English, and she thought in English when she was planning, these books and these tales that she wrote. But there are recordings of her. So I had to really, really prepare myself to get her voice and to get this arch guttural aristocratic sound. But obviously, after a couple of days working with everyone else on the set, it was like clear that I was sounding so different from everyone else that it would have been weird. So I had to find like just that balance between what she really sounded like, which to a lot of people in Denmark, that would be a known fact, and making it, sort of fit in with everyone else in the whole series, and also, making it so that it was pleasant for people to listen to. So it was a little bit like I was learning an accent for a film, like the way I do for a movie in America.
If I have time for just a quick follow-up on that, do you think that she spoke that way to be different, to have her own unique version of Danish, or was it just her upbringing dialect?
It's funny because there are other recordings where there are other journalists there, and yes, they are more mannered at the time, but she definitely took it to a different level. I don't know if that is because how people talked maybe like that during the golden age in Denmark. Maybe they did. I can't tell. But she had no interest in trying to take on like any vernacular type of sound. That's for sure.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you so much.
Oh my God, my pleasure.
For your work in general, for this project specifically, and for indulging my silly questions.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. They're not silly. They were great questions. Thank you so much.